from my perspective, I'm obviously most interested in making Bitcoin work as money. And I think if payments don't work, it will not succeed in any other way. Like other things are obviously interesting, but like if money doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Steven, how are you?
I'm good.
Welcome to the podcast. This
Thank
has
you.
been kind of a long time coming. I feel like
Yes.
you hit me up about the podcast when? Like a few months ago.
You did. Was it after Robin's or after Jeremy's?
I think it was after Robin's.
Yeah.
I think
That one was very good. Yeah.
It was excellent. Yeah. That is one of my favorite interviews I've ever done. But it was funny because I'd been like thinking about you because I was like, okay, I want to cover Ark.
Mm-hmm.
I'm relatively new to this technology still, although I'm catching up quick. You were the person that was most interesting, I think, to me. Alex Berg will kill me for saying this because I'm having him next. But I really wanted to get your perspective as somebody who was kind of there from sort of day one-ish.
Yeah. I mean, I reached out to Burak after he... we'll get there.
And weren't you working together? Okay, so back up.
Yeah.
Weren't you all, so the three kind of core founders of Ark, however, and that's sort of a weird term in and of itself in terms of like company, protocol, whatever, but it was really you, Tiero, and Burak?
Yeah, but not in any official setting in that composition.
But you were working. It was like those were the three kind of musketeers, and you were all working together. I want to kind of get a little bit of background context before we go into the history of Ark. Were you all working together at Liquid?
No. I mean, kind of yes. I was working in the Liquid team.
Okay.
At Blockstream, so we were building the backends for Liquid and all that, and then Burak was building some things on top of Liquid. He made this like script IDE to like interpret Bitcoin script and Liquid script, and then he built this like market making thing, Bitmatrix it was called.
Okay.
And Tiero at the same time was also building. I think they built Liquid Taxi, and they were trying to build this like Fujimoni thing, or they were gonna build it. So like. Basically, they were the two main users of Liquid.
That's interesting.
Liquid's kind of notorious for not having too many users, and they were actually building stuff on Liquid. So
Tiero and Burak were actual users of Liquid. They were like the two main Liquid users.
Yeah. And Tiero's like company, Vulpem, then they built a lot of like the infrastructure, also like libraries to use Liquid. So like they were kind of like spearheading the development on Liquid.
And just for context for folks who may not know, so Liquid is Blockstream's kind of L2 experiment.
Yeah, it's like a sidechain. It's been really old, right? Like they came with the idea of this sidechain when they launched Blockstream, which must have been 2014 or something. I don't know. And then they've been building it. And then kind of when I joined Blockstream, they kind of launched it, which was 2018-ish.
And you joined to work on Liquid specifically.
I really wanted to work on Lightning.
Of course you did. Yeah.
But at the time, they were like, okay, the Lightning team was really new and really... Yeah, exactly.
I'll take what I can get. Blockstream, fine.
I mean, I learned like a hell of a lot like in being in a Liquid team and just being part of the Blockstream team because the whole research arm is there as well. Right. You have easy access to talking with those folks. Like I learned a lot being there, so I definitely don't regret, but... Yeah.
But yeah, of course. In your dream world, you're working with Nifty and, on the Lightning side.
At the time, I think it was only Christian, Rusty, and Nifty at the time. So it was a really small team yet. So I was like, obviously...
Hard to get on.
They're not going to,
very elite
new kid
team.
to be in their team, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you're working on Liquid at Blockstream, and then you said Tiero and Burak were basically, maybe the only two users of Liquid. We don't really know.
Yeah, we said that jokingly,
builders.
but it was kind of true as well. I mean, maybe some people were transacting stuff, but like they were actually using it as
Can you give a very short TLDR on Liquid and like what it is? Like, why do you think it didn't have users and like what technically it is?
That's a lot of questions at once. So like it's a sidechain, right? So it's like a whole blockchain that has its own like consensus and stuff, but it's actually a fork of the software code of Bitcoin.
So it uses the actual execution. This is a key thing, I think, for our broader conversation about Ark. Liquid's execution environment is Bitcoin script.
No, so it's Liquid script, right?
It's
so
Liquid
they
script.
Forked the whole thing, and then they
similar.
added a lot of stuff. Yeah, so it's the same thing, but they added a whole lot of extra primitives that didn't exist in Bitcoin, because in Liquid we can just agree to add new stuff. So like we added also, for example, Segwit and Taproot before they came out on Bitcoin.
Okay. What other experimental things? Like, is Opcat available on Liquid?
Opcat is like all of the original opcodes that Bitcoin had that then were like disabled at some point because like Satoshi got scared of like some kind of bug. So he disabled like maybe 15 or 16 opcodes. So we all re-enabled those. And then the research team came up with some like covenant opcodes, like direct introspection opcodes, where you can just like get information from the transaction. And they also enabled those. I think those are the prime things that you have extra on Liquid, and that's very powerful. So you can build like automated market makers and stuff like that, like Burak was doing.
Do you know why they decided, and again, I think this is all very helpful context for Ark, do you know why they decided to build a second layer using effectively like an edited version of script rather than using something more expressive on the second layer or the sidechain?
I think the robustness of the Bitcoin code base definitely helps, right? So you get all the like security due diligence on the Bitcoin code base kind of for free inherited because your code base is kind of the same. So you can adapt all of those things. I think also like the whole ecosystem was using script. So like all the tools are made for that and you can very easily adapt those tools to be for Liquid script. So like
it was like made for Bitcoin developers. Like you wanted it to be, it's like kind of for maxis, right? Essentially, it's like maxi technology.
You sit in the same paradigm. You have UTXO paradigm. You can use the same developer tooling and stuff like that. So I think it made sense at the time. Like this was also like way early, right? There was no like roll up stuff and that going on. Like other chains existed. I think Ethereum already existed, but like there was no roll up stuff. So like a sidechain seemed a reasonable thing to do. At the time, Rootstock existed, which is like an EVM sidechain to Bitcoin. I don't think that took off either, but...
Why do you think Liquid didn't take off? Like, what is your take as something pretty close to the sauce? Why did Liquid not really gain any adoption?
I think it's multifaceted. I mean, first of all, like, there was not an urgent need for it. Like we often say like we built it for the future for when we will need it, but like fees were kind of okay on Bitcoin. You could do like many of the things on Bitcoin. I think also like Blockstream focused a lot on like getting the security right. We had like HSMs. We like cared a lot about like the supply chain, all that, but we didn't really build the developer tooling. We kind of had this mentality like, okay, the developers will come and they'll build stuff themselves. And Tiero did a lot of building that themselves, but like
it's hard.
It's hard. It goes a long way. Like it's good if you have the tooling ready to go.
They abandoned their core users. We talked about this last night. Like, what is the definition of a user? Actually, developers are the number one, first most important user.
Exactly. So like the developer experience on Liquid was never really great. That's definitely like our fault as like building this product. We were focusing on getting it secure, not really on how is it easy to build on this. Like I think Blockstream has this like fame for not being great at building products. They built great technology, but like they don't really focus on how.
Yeah, they're not like super like commercially savvy. They're great technical minds, but all of leadership are basically engineers.
Exactly. Yeah. So like, yeah, they hired like some big shot product managers, but they were like, Bitcoin is a tough industry for someone who's a big shot product manager that doesn't come out of the Bitcoin industry to like manage. So like it's difficult.
Made no sense. They were like what, like Google people or something?
Yeah,
it's like how do you even do that?
I think in my career, I was there for like 4 or 5 years. There was like 2 or 3 people trying to be head of products of like Liquid and stuff, and it just never really worked out.
Yeah, it doesn't work. You got to understand the industry, in my opinion, but it's a whole other topic for another time. Okay, so basic question I think that comes up all the time, and the number one criticism that I've ever heard of Liquid is its trust assumptions. Do you think that played a role in adoption or no?
Yeah, I mean, the Bitcoin industry is very purist, right? So that's definitely a problem. The original idea when I actually remember reading the paper like that Blockstream published when they were founding, they wanted to actually have a Bitcoin opcode to like do a trustless bridge, right?
Okay.
Like to like verify SPV proofs that came out of
They wanted to soft fork to make Liquid trustless.
Yeah, or to make like any kind of SPV proof. So you could basically prove certain things that happen on other chains.
What's
and
an
prove them
SPV proof?
Like a simplified payment verification.
Okay.
It's basically, you can prove that some transaction was in a block, but you don't have to give someone the whole block. So like it's kind of like a Merkle proof.
Okay, so it reduces like the data burden when
something like Electrum uses this for like Bitcoin.
Right.
But what they wanted to enable is like that you can prove SPV proofs from other chains, right? So like then you could basically prove, hey, I made a peg out on another chain, any other chain like Liquid, and then do it like trustlessly and actually peg it in. But then obviously like they realized it's really hard to get soft forks into Bitcoin, and maybe this is too like special purpose. Eventually it didn't work out, and they settled for the like strong federations, which was the second paper they came out with, which is like the model that they have right now with like 15 co-signers, 11 out of 15 threshold signature, and they manage the funds, and then it becomes like a federated sidechain, which is a different thing. So their original vision was not to do this, but they kind of had to settle for this.
So they wanted to build something that was trustless, but they kind of ended up with a federated sidechain.
Yeah. Actually, when you think about it, what they wanted to build in the very first place is kind of something as what Bitcoin BitVM is kind of also trying to do now without having to need an opcode for it. And it's like this giant project to just do the simple thing that they wanted to just have an opcode for.
Well, I think there's many, many examples of people who want to build bridges with opcodes. It's interesting, though, because I think maybe Liquid thought that they were a little bit more powerful, or, most projects that think that don't bet on getting opcodes. Maybe they felt more confident in their abilities given their political power to push something like that through.
I'm not sure. I wasn't there, obviously, like in the very early days, but I didn't have the feeling that they tried very hard. Maybe they also realized it didn't make sense to do an opcode for this. I don't really know why they eventually settled to not do it. Maybe they also didn't want to wait. I don't know.
Okay, so you're working on Liquid. By the way, is Liquid still are people still working on it actively?
Yeah, and actually, so then at some point you had this giant fee spike, right? Well, that was during Segwit. That was way better. But maybe with Ordinals as well. There was, exactly. Recently, there's been fee spikes as well. So then, people are I think Bolts.exchange is one of the first who enabled liquid swaps to Lightning, and then people were using this as a cheaper way than on-chain to offload or unload some Lightning liquidity. So, and then it started to see some usage, and I think recently it's been actually increasing in usage. I'm not sure what are the driving forces for that. I'm not really following too closely anymore, to be honest.
Okay, so you're working on Liquid. Burak and Tiero are building on Liquid, the star builders of Liquid. And then what happens? Tell me about this day that Ark is born.
That's a while later. I was kind of tired of Liquid, a bit burned out. So I decided to take a sabbatical. So I just take a year off and wanted to go travel a bit. Some personal events in my life also triggered me to want to do that. I mean, obviously it was after COVID, so we've all been confined. So I was fuck this shit, I'll just go travel. So I'm traveling around, and actually incidentally, we're in Istanbul right now. I had met the year before my sabbatical. I had met Burak in a conference here, the Lightning Hack Days that Fulmo organized. Really nice conference. And Burak just there showing up, showing his script IDE thing. He even gave me a T-shirt with a meme on it about Liquid. And so I knew he existed, and I knew that he was smart because he could build some things.
He must have been young. He must have been 22 years old.
Yeah, he was very young. He was very young. Yeah.
Okay.
And then I'm just on sabbatical, traveling around, and then he posed this thing. It was called TBD XXX. It was the first
TBD XXX.
Yeah, that was the temporary name of his idea. He was basically pondering Lightning and Lightning UX that kind of sucked. Just trying to improve it, and he just randomly stumbled onto this idea that then he was first trying to improve Lightning, but then realized actually this can be a thing without Lightning. This can be its own thing, right? And he just puts this in the mailing list, TBDXXX, and then a while later, it gets branded as Ark, and he just goes to on a conference and announces it, talks about it, makes a website for it, and I'm sending him a message yo, this is kind of cool. I want to understand this. The communications he's put out were not really helpful for most people to understand what was actually going on.
So most people didn't understand the tech when you put it out. Why did it read to you as cool? What was cool about it?
The promises were definitely cool. And so the reaction of most people was well, that's not possible because you cannot promise these good properties.
What were the promise? What did he say? What did
really
this
fast,
website
really
say?
cheap payments? I mean, obviously
that's everyone's promises.
Exactly. But he promised it for real because Lightning promises that, but then we already knew that Lightning promises that with a lot of trade-offs, and the trade-offs in Ark were different.
How did the architecture, the original, and I might ask you to say this a little slowly, so just for everyone can kind of grasp this. How would you TLDR the architecture that he put out, the core architectural idea at the time? At that time, what was the innovation? What was the breakthrough that was different?
I think the real innovation was that you can trustedly move off-chain UTXOs, VTXOs, from one tree, a timeout tree. Timeout trees were already kind of a thing that were talked about. It's
I don't know about timeout trees.
It's when you have everything was based on covenants, right? Something like CTV, a simple covenant. And it's you commit your transaction to go in another transaction that then commits with 3 new outputs, and they each commit to 3 new outputs or something like that. And you build a tree. And then at the leaves of this tree, you have outputs for each individual user.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then each user can basically make the path in their tree by subsequently like broadcasting a few transactions and get access to their money, which is kind of committed into this.
So this is where you start to get into round transactions in and out of the Ark, which basically means that people can like deposit, and then they effectively, at the time of deposit, you're pre-signing these output transactions that effectively guarantee you exit.
No, you don't have to pre-sign when you have a covenant.
You don't even have to pre-sign. Okay.
So with the covenant, you don't have to pre-sign, which is like the nice thing about it. Like now we're doing all this pre-signing because we don't have covenants, right?
I see. This is what you're saying. Originally the idea required a soft fork. Okay, so it actually required CTV at the time.
Or it would be built on Liquid where we had already these capabilities.
Okay, so Burak's original idea was also dependent on a soft fork.
Yes,
this was the idea of, so at that point it wasn't even, I mean, how interesting was that to people, considering the fact that like there's lots of things you can do if you can get a soft fork? I mean, is that really innovative?
Not a soft fork, right? It was a covenant soft fork that had been discussed for already like several years. Like it was a mature idea, that had been in the mind share of like many developers already and many protocol engineers.
So the idea was like, okay, guys, if we can get CTV through, here is like a practical implementation architecture of way that we can use this to create something permissionless.
I mean, there was lots of broken things about the original protocol. Like, for example, one thing that he wanted to do is like bridge really from one tree to another for each payment, and that it requires an interactive protocol, and he would do this every 5 or 6 seconds, and then the operator would have to make a Bitcoin transaction every 5 or 6 seconds, and that would kind of be entirely unworkable. So like from there we obviously evolved and like improved or like changed the protocol in many ways to like make it workable, not just without covenants but also practically for an operator.
Would you say it's fair that he developed this intentionally for the purpose of fixing Lightning's perceived problems specifically?
Yeah. I mean, that was what he started off with,
and specifically liquidity constraints. Like that was the issue. He wanted to figure out how you could do something Lightning-esque whilst avoiding the liquidity constraints problem.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously wasn't in his head when he was doing this, right? But I think he was looking for a way to indeed like more efficiently get liquidity in and out of your Lightning channel, and he was trying to use this thing. But then he was like, well, actually, they don't have to be channels. You can just use this as a normal other layer 2 protocol that just can do things on itself without needing to be used for Lightning.
Okay. And this was also where something else that I think came up. Okay, so the core idea of Ark, how would you like TLDR this? Like TLDR Ark for us really quickly.
The current or then like basically, you have these timeout trees like I just explained,
right?
And then you can basically, you have an operator. It's a client server protocol, right? So it's not peer-to-peer like Lightning. You don't have like your channel partners. You have one server who's like running the Ark. I mean, you can have multiple, but all the users in the same Ark are talking with this one server.
Okay,
he's running the Ark, but like the users have always full control over their funds. The server never like touches the user's funds. He just manages signatures and all that to like get it to work.
It's almost like a wallet.
Yeah, but a hosted wallet in the sense that there's a server doing all kinds of stuff. But the user, if the server disappears, the user can always get access to their money, right? So because they don't need the server to get their money. They just need the server to efficiently move their money to someone else.
And explain why you always get your money out, even if the server dies.
You have this set of transactions in the tree that basically unroll to your money, right? So
meaning if I input, I am already automatically guaranteed exit. The output is already basically
so the things
created.
that you hold, we call them VTXOs, like virtual UTXOs. They're basically off-chain UTXOs. The thing that you hold is an actual package of transaction that you can broadcast onto the mempool, and then it gives you your money.
And it's already essentially like scheduled to be put back on layer 1, right? That's
no. That's the whole point. Like you have this package that can give you your money, but you don't want to use it because it costs on-chain fees, right? So the whole protocol is so that as long as the protocol works cooperatively, no one ever has to use these transactions. They're like an escape hatch, like a safety hatch, right? So as long as the protocol works efficiently, you can actually exchange these like rights to money for new rights to money in like the next section of the protocol, and then you can just keep doing this forever, and no one actually ever has to broadcast any of these transactions. But if something goes wrong, they always have these transactions.
Well, that's my point, right? Is like, this is like the key thing, is that like, assuming you don't do this renewal activity, you will get your money back. It's already like once you input, you're basically guaranteed to get an output if you do nothing. In the absence of an action, that output has already been created. You have to execute this renewal process in order to
Yeah,
keep your VTXOs in the Ark, right? This is really key. For me, that was like a major like helpful thing to understand about this protocol is like, oh, what makes it permissionless, what gives me unilateral exit is the fact that the output is signed automatically the second I go in. Like that money is coming back to me unless I renew and opt in to keeping it in the Ark. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but to get it back to you, you also need to do something, right? You need to put this transaction on the chain. No one's going to do it for you. I mean, someone could,
but
like
it's
a watchtower,
but it's like
they
done.
exist. Yeah,
it exists. And in that way, it's like has the same trust assumptions as Lightning. Like it's like a pre-signed transaction. Right. Exactly. Okay. So that is functionally how, for lack of a better word, I'm not going to call it a bridge, but like that's how the like in and out of this L2 kind of works, right? You have these round transactions, right?
The rounds is not in and out. It's mostly like in. I mean, yeah, you can use them to get out as well, but like it's more like
critical.
How to stay in. It's not to get in. You do another thing.
Of course, we want to have all the money in as much as we can and lots of money on the L2. But like practically, as like it's very important that people can get them out, right? Like the out transact, the ability to have out transactions is critical.
Because the thing with the timer tree is not really a new thing, right? That already existed. So the key innovation in Ark is how to trustlessly move forward this one VTXO, this one write that you have in one tree into a next tree that's being built, right? So every round a new tree is being built, and people that have writes in all the older trees can then just like trustlessly migrate into the new tree, right? And that thing is where
that's the renewal function, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
You call it
refresh.
forfeiture?
We call it refresh.
You call it refresh. Because I've seen multiple terms. This was something I wanted to talk to you about. There's a lot of language, a lot of different terms that I've heard for all these different things, some of which are internal to companies, some of which are different terms between companies. This is a challenge.
Yeah, we call it the refresh process. And then the forfeit transaction is what you kind of sign to make this like trustless for the service.
To make it happen.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so this is sort of the TLDR, how you get money in and out. Once they're in, right? Once you're on an Ark, and then we'll kind of move out of the like technical explanation portion of this, but it's important context. Once you're in the Ark, you are basically limited to Bitcoin script. This is all of the executions in the Ark are done with Bitcoin script.
Yeah, so in the Ark, you have VTXOs, which are basically just Bitcoin UTXOs. So you can do anything that you can do on a Bitcoin UTXO, but then like with a small, like you have to add a little bit of extra policy. For example, you need to add a small timeout for your exit, and then you need to have a co-signature with the server. But within that constraint, so like if you know what miniscript is, you can like abstract the policies in your script. And with miniscript, you can just add another policy on top, and then anything that goes on the other side, you can just do anything. So you can do multisig, you can do HTLCs, you can do swaps, you can do all kinds of stuff that you can do on Bitcoin, but then like off-chain.
Similarly to, well, your competitor Arcade, but also Liquid for that matter, did you guys consider at Second, which is one of two Ark implementations? We kind of jumped around. We'll probably go back to the birth story of these things in a second. But did you consider adding additional opcodes or, expanding the scripting language within Second?
No, it's not really possible. I mean, to do that, you need to do like some kind of like trusted co-signing based stuff, because like we use the transactions in the Ark are Bitcoin transactions. You cannot add opcodes, right? To add opcodes, you need to like sudo add opcodes where you commit to something and then the cosigner only cosigns if you're doing the thing. You could add anything there, but you can also build that on like Cashew, or you can build that on like any other like platform. It's just like then you have some kind of trusted cosigner who's just signing off if you provide the right input, right? It's not really adding it to the protocol. It's like adding it as an extra layer on top of that protocol. Okay. Like because you're using Bitcoin transactions, you cannot just add an extra opcode to that, right? So the way that they did it with Arcade script, I don't know the technical details, but it's like you commit to some kind of additional script. This could have been in any programming language, right? This could have been just like Rust. And then the cosigner only if the next transaction provides the right input, they will provide the signature so that the transaction can move on. But in the actual Ark protocol layer, it needs to be Bitcoin. So the only thing you can do is like a co-signature. You can do a time lock and stuff like that, but like the whole other scripting just lives on another parallel layer.
If you're going to add additional scripting functionality, you're effectively acting like yet another layer sort of on top of the protocol.
Yeah, they wouldn't be native to the Ark protocol.
Which is what Arcade is doing. And Alex will be next, so I'll grill him on that as well. But that's helpful. So that was sort of a design decision to not go beyond, just keep it at the Bitcoin payments level.
Yeah. Because it's a Bitcoin second layer. I mean, we basically want Bitcoin to move like faster and better, and just like
your core goal is payments. Payments is the North Star.
Payments first, right? I mean, Bitcoin is money, right? So payments need to work. And then because we have the full functionality of Bitcoin, anything else comes from that. Like you can do DLCs very easily, like because it's just a policy in a Bitcoin UTXO. Just like you can do DLCs like loans and trades and all that. You can do it on the Bitcoin base layer. You can also do it in Ark. And all you need to do is just support multisig or support like generic UTXO policies and stuff like that. So you can do multisig, lightning channels inside the Ark. You can do swaps. You can do DLCs. You can do whatever you can do on Bitcoin, like escrow, like whatever you can do on Bitcoin, you can do in the Ark. But payments need to come first. Like you need to be able to actually do it in a user-friendly way. Like
how fast are these payments?
They're kind of instant. You just have to ask the server to co-sign something, and then you send the signature off to like the person you're paying. So it's kind of very fast.
So it's lightning level speed.
Yeah.
It's
maybe even faster because in lightning you need to talk with multiple people, right? Like it's a route of payment. So all these people need to like do some stuff, and here is just a server.
Right. And much less likely to have like, something break or something go wrong or something not confirmed than lightning, you would say.
Yeah, but arguably, like the in-Ark payments only work with two people in the same Ark, right? And obviously, like we don't want that kind of like network buy-in requirement. So like most of the payments we imagine will go through Lightning anyway, right? So like people inside the Ark will use Lightning to pay anyone agnostic of where they are, just they support Lightning. So they can be in another Ark, they can be a custodial wallet, they can be like a Phoenix or like a traditional Lightning wallet. So like eventually we'll use Lightning as well. But like within the Ark, the payments are quite instant, very fast and just easy because you just need to talk with your server and that's it.
Okay, so this was also like a key distinction and something that when I was researching you guys came up as like an important kind of like philosophical design choice for you. This idea that you have multiple servers, you have multiple Arks, and that is essentially how scaling operates, right? The ability to scale comes from the fact that you don't have a limit. You can have as many servers as you want, right? And I heard somebody, I think it was probably somebody from Ark Labs, I forget who, that I was watching on video, who described this as horizontal scaling versus vertical, right? So we think of Bitcoin as scaling vertically in layers, right? So it's layer 1, 2, 3, they kind of build on top of each other. But in theory, this sort of Ark path enables you to scale horizontally, right? You can just have multiple servers that are kind of operating in parallel. How are they connected, though, is a question. Like, how do they communicate with each other? Like you said, like
they don't have to.
They don't have to. But then how do you said, what's this problem if you only have two people in an Ark, right? Like at a certain point.
You use Lightning, right?
Oh, so they can communicate with each other via Lightning.
Yeah, they don't communicate. They can just read each other for payments, right?
They can just They can just route money to each other.
Yeah, so an Ark server in our architecture has their own like Lightning node, like as a gateway, but it's like native. So you can just make Lightning payments over that node to like any Lightning invoice. So like you don't even need to know that the other person is in another Ark. He will just show you a Lightning invoice that he got from his like server kind of. And then I just tell my server I want to pay this Lightning invoice. And then like I do something with my server to make it trustless, like an HDLC. And then he just makes sure it goes on the Lightning network. And the other one is doing some HDLC with his server and it gets routed straight through, right? So
how competitive would you say Ark is with Lightning versus complementary?
I think, competitive Lightning is a network. It's not.
In terms of what it's being used for, right? In terms of like usage.
I think it's 100% complementary because every Ark usage, I think, or like 99% of all the like payments usage in Ark will also just be Lightning.
It will be. They will be Lightning payments.
Like if you want to build, for example, a loans platform, right, with DLCs, there you would have to be like all your users would have to be on the same Ark because otherwise like they cannot like know where the DLCs live. So for like if you do a specific users like a purpose specific thing like a loans platform or a trading thing like the 10.1 people were building, then they would have to all be in the same Ark. But then that's only there. So if you want to get your money out of that, you can just also get a Lightning invoice, put it on another Ark.
So basically, this is actually the key answer to the question that I asked you before about like how these Arks are like quote unquote connected. Like you actually need Lightning in order for the scaling to work.
So it's 100% what's the word?
Complementary.
Complementary. Like you cannot.
Ark doesn't actually scale without Lightning, is what you're telling me. It's hard.
It scales in like...
It's a harder problem.
Yeah, it doesn't scale like in reach, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You need Lightning in order to really make Ark work globally. So Ark is really something that you could argue helps Lightning scale.
Yeah, so like one of the main UX pain points is that as an end user, it's really annoying to be part of the Lightning Network because you need to maintain your channels, you need to maintain liquidity, and in Ark, you don't have to do any of that.
Most people who use Lightning are not actually using Lightning. They're just using custodial Lightning. This is something that we talk about all the time on the pod. Yeah, okay. Yeah. But Ark would theoretically make the UX for using Lightning non-custodially manageable.
Exactly, yeah.
All right, guys, I want to take a quick break to thank you for watching and remind you to click the follow button on my profile if you want more Bitcoin technical deep dives like this. I also want to give a shout out to my partners for making the show possible. My leading partner, Best in Slot, just released the Programmability module for BRC20, making the execution of smart contracts possible for the protocol. I know that's been long awaited by the BRC20 community. Alongside this release, Best in Slot put out what is arguably the most sophisticated deck for trading Bitcoin native assets called Coin Cooker, which I also highly recommend checking out if you want to dive into the BRC20 trading game and get started executing smart contracts on Bitcoin. I'd also like to thank Cetrea, building one of the leading implementations of a BitVN-style bridge for Bitcoin. Cetrea is building what I think could become the canonical Bitcoin rollup, enabling programmability, scaling. Really anything is possible with a trust minimized bridge, which is the unique value prop of these BitVM-style rollups on Bitcoin. Lastly, I'm thrilled to announce my newest partner, Spark, which is the leading state chains protocol on Bitcoin. State chains builds upon what was made possible by the Lightning Network for payments, but without the liquidity constraints and the UX challenges that often make self-custodial Lightning impractical. Spark is also led by one of the leading payments infrastructure teams on the planet, including founders from PayPal, Facebook. They're incredibly well positioned to turn Bitcoin into a true institutional standard for payment systems around the world, and I couldn't be more excited to support what they're up to. All right, on that note, let's get back to the show.
What's the user experience using Ark like? Because, I mean, this rounds transaction thing, like, you know, you have to, like, it's challenging. I'm like, oh, shit, every 28 days or whatever the number is, I have to make sure I do the thing.
My talk today will be exactly about this, right? So obviously, like, we're building the first version of this, and obviously we have a vision about where it can go and how we can improve. So, like, the end goal is that, like, the end goal, if we get covenants with, like, all the features that I currently have in mind, would be you don't have to do anything. You can just, like, not have your phone on for months, and your money will always be there unless you get a phone call, because you can get some watchtower. So, like, we can make the rounds entirely non-interactive. So users don't even have to be online to do the rounds. They can just, like, tell their server, like, yo, I want to refresh this. And then just, like, next day, they just get it back. We can even do automatic refreshes. So, like, the server can just trustlessly keep the user's money in the Ark without the user have to do anything. They need to make sure someone to, like, watch that this is actually happening. But you
can, like, program the server to refresh for you, essentially.
Yeah, trustlessly by, like, you signing on some stuff so that the server can do it, and then you always have this, like, exit hatch, and then someone third party can just be monitoring that this is happening and just, like, wake up your phone or like send you an email or call you when this is happening, because this should really never happen, right? You can, like, your app can maybe do it for you, like, hey, you want us to, like, notify you if something goes wrong, and this should never happen because
But it should never happen. You could literally just let this run indefinitely, and theoretically it should be fine, but if there is an issue, then you get an alert.
Without covenants, we cannot go that far. We cannot do automatic refresh and all that, but we can get pretty far. Like, we're currently working on some way to do non-interactive rounds without covenants.
Okay.
Because the round interactions, like, we're realizing is very difficult to manage on mobile phones. Especially iOS, they're like,
doesn't shock
what
me.
You can do. Yeah, exactly. What you can do on iOS is really, 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 like, limited. And it's not just limited, it's also undocumented. So you don't even know what you'll get. You cannot even have a benchmark that you then try to reach with your protocol, because at any random time, it can just be different, right? This time they think, oh, yesterday you got a lot of resources, so today we're going to cut you more than normal and all that kind of stuff. So, like, it's not really documented how many seconds you get, how often you can wake up your app in the background and all that. So you don't even have a benchmark that you can target. So
how long could I, like, fall asleep and not look at my Ark wallet or whatever before I'm going to have to be called to an action without covenants? Like, if we don't have covenants,
you have to, like, make sure, like, we are thinking that VTXOs will have lifetime of 1 month, more or less.
Okay, so
this is a parameter, right?
Without CTV, like, I have every month I have to take an action.
Yeah, at least. Yeah.
Okay.
You can have multiple VTXOs that have expiry times
with
and multiple
CTV, I could go infinitely without having to take an action to
CTV,
manage
APO.
my Ark situation.
Like something that does a rebindable signature, right? So the proposal that's currently that's been on the table, CTV and checksig from stack can do this. The other proposal, like template hash with internal key and checksig from stack, can also do it. Like anything that can do a rebindable signature can do the automatic refresh. Anything that can
Was
do
it Greg
templating.
Sanders who put that forth recently on the mailing list? I forget.
Yeah.
It was, right? Okay.
So it was Greg, Antoine Poinsot, and myself. We were kind of like trying
you were
to
involved
iterate.
in that.
Yeah.
Okay. So
You're trying to iterate on the CTV thing to like make it more Taproot native.
Were they trying to help out Ark? Are they Ark fans? Greg and Antoine?
I think I'd call Greg an Ark fan. I think Antoine is still like making up his mind, I think.
Okay.
Not sure.
Antoine sounds like he feels like a more difficult sell to me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Greg is like, he just sometimes just randomly sends me a message like, hey, like I thought about this. So like, I think it's in his mind.
He's thinking about it.
But I mean, a lot of stuff is in Greg's mind, so.
Yeah. No, but that doesn't surprise me, just personality-wise. I've only met them a couple of times each, but I got a quick sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've done a lot of technical deep diving, way more than I thought that I would this early in the interview, but I think these are important points that we've made. Let's just go back to the history a little bit because I want to tell the story, right? Because it's interesting. So Burak, this like 22-year-old kid who is building on Liquid, kind of has this idea. You said he's not a developer?
I'm not sure. Like he built these things, but like the way he told me is that he always got some developer to sit next to him and like develop the stuff while he's telling him like kind of what to do. Like he can see the technical.
He's an architect.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Okay, but he always has a developer like coding it for him.
I think so. Yeah.
Kinda.
I mean, that's what
we
understood.
think.
Yeah,
that's our understanding.
Understood.
Okay, and he's pretty young at this point. I mean, he must have been straight out of school if he even graduated at this time.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so then this website, you reach out to him. You're like, I'm interested in this.
Yeah.
I don't even understand how it works, but if what you're doing works, this has implications.
Yeah. And I'm on sabbatical, right? So like you can only sit on the beach for so many like months on end. So like I'm kind of like getting tempted to like do something.
Hungry.
And I'm like, yo, like I kind of want to understand this because many of the people I talk with had kind of discarded it as like, well, this is not really possible. But I kind of like, I had met Burak, I knew he was smart, so I knew there must be something on with this. There must be something like real about this. So then I was like, explain me. And then we tried to meet up in some conference, didn't work out, but then eventually we met up in some hacker house in San Francisco. Actually, Super Testnet was there as well.
Yeah.
And I arrived like late at night. So like the next morning, Super Testnet is just sitting in the couch and he's like, hey, good morning. I had never met him before. You want to understand Ark? And I'm like, yes, please. And he just takes a whiteboard and he explains it to me in like 15 minutes. Because if you have a whiteboard and you just have arrows...
did.
No, Super
did. It was a Super got it. Super is the translator for all people, obviously.
Yeah, and it's like, if you have a whiteboard, like,
Bitcoin,
and then I realized the idea of Ark is not hard. It's not rocket science. It's actually quite simple. The core idea, the connector thing to make this work, it's actually a pretty straightforward idea if you have a whiteboard and you can actually explain it properly.
Right.
Like, it's hard to explain.
We should have gotten a whiteboard. Maybe we'll do that next. Okay.
So like I was like, okay, cool, right? And from there, like I started to think about this. I was on sabbatical, so I was like, okay, it would be nice to like try and build.
Was Burak there when the Super Testnet tutorial session happened?
He was just not awake yet. It was just early in the morning.
Okay, so it's the three of you. Scott, Super everywhere. If Super's there, something's happening. That's my
at the
take.
time. Actually, Robin was there, but I could only arrive at a certain day, and Robin had to leave the day before.
Was this like a conference or something?
But I didn't see Robin. I had never met him, but he was there. No, it was just a hacker house.
Oh, it was a hacker house. In Istanbul?
Random... No, San Francisco.
Oh, in San Francisco.
It was just some Airbnb that they rented to hack away. Talk about this, yeah.
In like,
but like Robin had left the night before I arrived, so we kind of like crossed paths and we didn't meet each other.
Okay, this was 2022. 23. This was this was post ordinals.
I don't follow ordinals, so I don't really know.
Oh, come on. Give me a break. Okay. So 2023, you go to this hacker house, the Super explains it to you, and you're like, now it's in your head. Now you're like ready to go.
I'm like, okay.
So what happens? Yeah.
So I'm like, this like, I didn't really want to go back to Blockstream after my sabbatical anyway already. I was like, so I was like, okay, I can do this. So like, I talked with I think at some point Burak had started a company together with Tiero to like build his.
Okay.
I don't know how they...
Which makes sense because they're like liquid building buddies.
I think they knew each other. They've been talking about stuff. So they've started this company and I'm like, I kind of want to also build this, right?
You?
Yeah. So we kind of agreed that I would join them, but because I was still on sabbatical, I would wait until like the end of the year. So I would start
Finish
January
your travels.
1st. I was like, traveling a little bit more, or like doing Christmas and stuff.
What
and
was
then,
your role and what were theirs?
Yeah, so they were co-founders. I wasn't really aware of the internal structure, at that point. So like, they was like, okay, we have this company, like, and I was going to be their first engineer. The way we negotiated was that like after 6 months, I would kind of become a co-founder then as well. But because they didn't know me well, they're like, okay, like, let's see how it goes. So like I was going to start January 1st. And then I actually flew, like, so in my first month, actually there was a third person involved, which was a friend of Burak. And he was the one that I talked with, did my contract with.
He was like the CFO.
He was like managing the whole thing,
The
basically, like the actual
operations.
administration. Yeah.
Okay.
But I think Tiero was mostly running like the actual things. Like he had Vulpen Ventures, which was his like company doing some other things, and he had some guys there, and they were already trying to build a prototype on Liquid. Of this thing.
A prototype of Ark on Liquid.
Yeah, using the covenants, because at that time the design was still fully based on covenants.
Because you needed a Liquid has covenants. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then like Christmas goes by and like January comes and I start, and we have like this like offsite retreat somewhere in Italy with the guys that were doing the demo. Burak came up as well. Tiero was there, and we like meet the team, and I was like excited. Like that was cool. Like we actually had a team. We were building something. They had just like, or they were finishing their prototype in Liquid, and I kind of wanted to build a prototype in just on Bitcoin, using the covenantless Ark, the Clark, the cosigned version.
Mm-hmm.
So I started doing that. Burak was there, but he was like not. It was clear from the beginning that Burak was not really interested in building anything. He was just like the thinker, and so like as soon as we were building, he was like not really involved anymore. He was there. We had some conversations.
He's like, I just want to be creative and like,
Yeah. But then like, I think the first month.
But Tiero was very committed to building.
Yeah. And Tiero had built stuff before. Like I was confident that with Tiero
was
and
getting
his team,
shit
like,
done.
we could get shit done, and we could actually build this protocol. Like I was very excited. I'd never been part of like such a early on startup. Like obviously Blockstream's a startup, but it's also not, right?
But you didn't have like sort of formal roles, really. It was just kind of like a mob.
We were just getting started.
Okay.
Things were also like already a bit difficult with like Burak and this third person. So this third person, Alex, he couldn't make it to this retreat. He was very busy. So
did he like have other work to do? Was he like full time?
That's what he said. Yeah, he also had some other projects or something like that.
Okay, but he was semi-absent, managing the ops.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then basically Tiero managing the actual work being done, right? So then a month goes by, and I get this phone call from Tiero saying Alex passed away, it seems. So we
the CFO ops person.
Yeah, the guy managing the whole thing, because Burak was just there, mostly spending his time, I think, in Miami Beach.
He passed away.
And
they were in Miami.
No, Burak was. He likes to be there.
Burak.
I don't know where Alex was, right? I didn't know him. I never met him in my life. So like, I just talked with him. We signed contracts and we talked about stuff.
So Alex suddenly
so he passed away. Yeah, and like
away.
Tiero is like, well, he's the only person with like all the documents of the company. Like they had some investors, so there was some money. He was the only one with access to the bank account. So like, it was kind of like a crisis situation.
How much money had you raised at this point?
I think they had raised $5 million, something like that.
That's significant.
Yeah. So, yeah, it seems like he said like Burak doesn't seem to be interested to like come over and like try to resolve the situation. So then I went to Italy, even though I was not a formal co-founder, right? I was not really involved in the company other than that I had this paper signed
Burak
that says that I was
kind of like
engineer.
checked out. He just like didn't really want to.
Yeah, he didn't seem interested, even though it was his friend who's supposed to just have passed out.
But
so I was like,
maybe
he's just sad and he just like mourning his friend and he doesn't want to like do business right now. I could understand that, but I don't know.
Okay.
So then I fly to Italy. I meet with...
Do both Tiero, by the way, you raised $5 million. Who has equity in this situation at this point?
I don't know.
Does Burak... Oh, you didn't have any equity.
I mean, I had a contract that would give me equity, like...
Eventually.
Options, yeah.
But you had not acquired any equity at this point.
No, it was my first month.
But I presume Burak and Tiero and probably this other guy, Alex,
they must
all
have had
had equity.
Yeah. I mean, they were the co-founders of the company.
They were the co-founders of the company. Okay,
Yeah.
so I assume Burak had equity and would probably feel some accountability to this situation. But he's
you would
also
think, but he was clearly not feeling any accountability of the situation.
I think he's quite young, and who else knows, right? I mean, we don't know. His friend dies. Who else knows what's going on? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. We also didn't know like the circumstances in which he died and stuff like that.
You had no idea.
Right. Now I have, because I figured stuff out, but at the time it was like, he just passed away. We don't know how. We don't know why.
Young guy, right? I mean, what, he's like in his 30s or something.
Things pass your mind, like suicide or something, because like young people don't just die, right?
Right.
No one told us it was an accident or something. So like we can only like imagine what could have happened.
So he passes away. Burak is like checked out.
Yeah. So
and then you and Tiara are in Italy trying to like deal with this situation.
Yeah, deal with the situation, right?
Yeah.
So I go over there to Italy and we try to like get hold of the situation, like what happened and what's the state of the company. And then we realize, like, I cannot really go into details here, but we realized that some stuff went down that should really not have went down in this company. So it's kind of like a little bit of an ugly situation, and just Tiero has to deal with it. Like, he was involved officially, right? He was a co-founder. I was just an employee. I just had signed the document that I was going to work for them. So obviously he had to like figure that stuff out.
Tiero had to deal with this problem.
And he did, like, so eventually, like, we're like cleaning stuff up.
Did he extricate himself from the company, or how did it all?
We're not going to talk about that. But like,
we don't know.
We got to, but I just.
But the company doesn't exist. This
company doesn't exist
version
anymore,
of the company does
obviously
not
we had to
exist.
get rid of this. It had like a ugly history. Clearly, Burak was not interested in continuing this anymore. So it was basically Tiero being alone and then me being an employee, and we kind of wanted to make this work. We were still like wanting to build Ark, right?
We still wanted to build Ark. But the bottom line is like this version of the company that was the four of you, Tiero, Burak, and Alex, was like done.
Yeah.
So then basically you and Tiero, Burak's checked out. Alex has unfortunately sadly passed away. You and Tiero basically like start a new company?
Yeah, that's what we were talking about. Yeah,
you started a new company.
So as soon as we get like hold of the existing like situation and we get things like in order and stuff, we're thinking like obviously we need to start a new company, like rebrand or like do something. And I was actually there when we were having conversations on renaming us to Ark Labs and stuff like that. I was there when we came up with this name.
Oh, so Ark Labs was the original company that you two started together.
I know we didn't. Eventually, we ended up not doing that.
Oh,
because like
when was this, by the way? Like, where are we? Like,
that's a good question. This is like March, something like that.
Like this past March,
2024.
Okay, so this is like a year and a half max.
Yeah, so I started 1st January. All this stuff went down like end of January or beginning February.
Okay.
And then like it took a few months to like get stuff in order. And then I think it must have been around March or something. We were having these conversations.
About like, what is this company called?
How do we go forward from here?
Yeah. Okay. And so the Ark Labs was a name that was even on your tongue at that time.
Yeah,
but
we were talking about the future.
The idea was for you two to be
about
co-founders. It wasn't like his company.
That was my idea, right? So that's where like
you wanted to be a co-founder with him, I presume. No, I presume you were like, let's do this together.
I'm very happy that you have this presumption. So that's what was my presumption. Like we're here, we're like leftover of this like thing that happened, and we're like wanting to build Ark, right?
Yeah, let's start a company.
So what happened is that like Marco then involved his like partner in Vulcan Ventures, like some guy named Simone.
When you say ventures, Vulcan Ventures, like
Vulcan.
Was this a VC situation,
it's
or
some
was
company,
it just like
they built projects, something like that. They
Okay.
did some stuff on Liquid. They did some other stuff. I actually didn't really know, but it was a name. They've been around. They had some guys. This was the guys doing the proof of concept, but they were doing this under like Vulpem employment, doing the proof of concept. But it was good. Like he had a team, which is good. We can just inherit the team, I thought.
So he wanted to bring on his ventures buddy to be his co-founder.
And he wanted the Ark Labs to be a Vulpem Ventures project that was fully owned or like majority owned by Vulpem.
So he had a different, like just like a different priority in terms of like the business structure than you did.
Exactly. Yeah. And
you were like, no, let's do it together, like 50-50, basically.
Yeah. And I mean, at the time already, like, because I was getting excited about this, like, okay, we're going to build this. I had reached out to one of my best friends, Eric, who was then like, I kind of like Bitcoin pilled him, like orange pilled him back in the days.
Was he an engineer?
And he was, at that time,
he's
an engineer. So he was joining Blockstream during my sabbatical. He was like, hey, maybe I joined Blockstream. I was like, yeah, do it. But like, I was already telling him I'm not really planning on going back after my sabbatical. This was like halfway my sabbatical. But he's like, yeah, who cares? Like, it's interesting. So he ended up working at Blockstream doing like things on top of Liquid, but also with Greenlight and Lightning.
Okay.
In their team. And I was already like, hey, like, you can maybe, like, are you interested working for us? And he's like, yeah, that would be cool, like, doing something
So you were
else.
talking to Eric while this was all going on. You were trying to court Eric anyway.
Yeah, because he's like one of my best friends, and he's
talented.
working on this. He's very smart, so like he's already working on this. And I mean, yeah, I'm not gonna talk Blockstream internals, but like at the time, like
you were like, come hang with Ark, like Blockstream giant corporate entity.
Exactly.
Come do the cool thing over here and build something new. Okay.
So then, I don't know, like, I don't want to go into detail, but like some stuff happened with like
you and Tiero were not on the same
Simone,
page.
and I was like not happy, and I was just like,
with Simone, who is Simone?
Simone, his business partner in Fulton,
Okay, so
and I was like, I don't
happened.
really feel very good about this situation and this group of people, like the way that they treated me or thought of me, I don't know. And I was like, well, you know, if you're starting a company together, then that was actually something that Tiero was always telling me.
Yeah.
Actually, which was some kind of wisdom that he was always telling me, like, hey, a company is like a marriage. A startup is like a marriage. You get in there, you cannot just get out, right? It's like it's like you need to dedicate some years of your life to like making that work.
Yeah.
And I was just not feeling that was the right match, you know, that situation. So I was then not feeling very good about that.
Well,
and
it sounds like you weren't being put up to the level of seniority that you wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, you can argue whether it was justified that I wanted that, but like,
it doesn't matter. It doesn't, like, to your point, like, it's irrelevant. It's kind of like there
were some other reasons why I didn't feel good. But yeah, so then I started talking with Eric, and I was like, well, I mean, I don't really feel good about this situation. Like, how about we do it ourselves? And he was like, oh, you know, I just bought a house, you know. So like, you know, startups, it's a different game, you know, than earning a salary. But he was interested. He was like, I mean, it would be great, obviously.
Would be cool.
Just like, we need to talk about it. So at that time, we just decide, like, at some point he just says, yeah, I mean, we can go for it. And
so he eventually surrendered, and it was like, let's do it.
Yeah. And at that
time,
when
was that? How far? When did second come into being?
I mean, second, the real thing comes later, but like, we were already talking names, and I think Second Labs came up, or like something like that. But this must have been like shortly after, like March, April.
Like that.
Like,
April.
Early in the year. Yeah.
It's great. Okay. So
I decided to do this thing with Eric, right? So I sent this email to Tiero in his formal position as still supposedly being my boss, right? I was still having this employment contract with this company. I had never seen any salaries from the company because, you know, things were difficult. But so I sent him this message like, hey, I don't feel good about this, so I'm out. And I received this email in return within 1 hour that says, we regret your decision, but we want you to know that all the intellectual property you have created in the past 3 months are not yours, but are owned by the company. And I'm like, fuck, what's this, you know?
Yeah.
So I go to Eric, I'm like I'm known with my friends as the anarchist, so like I'm very ideologically against intellectual property, and I was like, it's not going to be that intellectual property is going to be the thing that prevents me from doing a startup that I want to do, right?
You
so
will not allow that.
I get like, this is crazy. So we start to talk with some lawyers, like, hey, what's the situation? Like, what can we do without going to jail? Like, because, you know, I had written this code, but I didn't, like, you know, IP sucks. It's not your code, even though you might have written it.
It is the law, right?
Yeah. So then, yeah.
And that was in your contract. Like, you had seen it. You were like, oh, yeah, this isn't my contract. I did sign this, like, employment
Every contract has that, I think, that, like, whatever you do is owned by the company, yeah?
Right,
So, and, I mean, actually, I was talking already with this Alex guy about open source licenses, but we never got around to designing and putting an open source license on the code that had been written, right? So, like, the code was there, but with no license on it. So, like, you talk with lawyers, it seems like it's not going to be, like, very pretty, but also not impossible. Like, you pay them a lot, they come up with stupid solutions that solve your problem, you know? They're like, oh, we're going to webcam you rewriting the code from scratch. It's like, that's stupid.
Yeah.
But then, like, I think a month later or something, I meet Tiero in Austin at Bitcoin++. Must have been April, May or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just, like, catching up. And he's like, yo, like, what's up? And I'm like, yeah, you know, this, like, IP thing. And he's like, well, you know, like, what do you want? And I'm like, well, you could open source the code. And he's like, okay. So then he's like agreeing, like, okay, we'll open source the code. And I'm like,
all right.
I'm like telling Eric, like, yo, it seems like our problem is solved. I think we can actually do this.
Win for open source. Hell
Exactly,
yeah. And Tierra
yeah.
did the right thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was a win. So from then on, we were like, okay, we can do this. Because before that, it was like, okay, we don't want to get into like a stupid intellectual property war or something like that.
Yeah. Waste
So
of
from
time.
that point, it was like, okay, let's do this.
And so that was when? When was second
May
created? May, June.
Well, so we were two engineers, right?
Yeah, you need help.
We write code. We know how to like solve technical problems, but none of us had ever like run a startup or something. Like we are like in the Scouts and in the Boy Scouts, you know. And in Belgium, it's like different. Like it's like there's no adults involved, so it's basically youth running like a small organization with kids and with like youths, and we had our own like buildings and all that. So we had, and I was like group responsible there for a few years, and also 1 year with Eric. So we had worked together. We had managed some stuff together, like on a not a corporate thing, but like another thing.
Okay.
So we knew that we could work together, right? But we didn't have the experience to like how
you
the
didn't have the
companies work. And also. So I started reaching out to a lot of friends of mine that maybe were looking for work or to join, or like maybe knew someone.
Open.
Yeah. So we had some conversations with one person, but then eventually someone recommended me like, hey, you should talk with Neil. And Neil was at Blockstream and I was at Blockstream as well. He had already also left Blockstream, and he was doing some kind of startup.
He was Unchained for some time.
He was also at Unchained for some time, but I think at this time, he was trying a startup. They didn't manage to raise a second round of funding, so they were kind of like not sure if it was going to continue, and he was like looking for things. So I reached out to Neil because someone told me that I should talk with him. I reached out to him, and he's like, yeah, it's not really a good time. Can we talk maybe 1 month from now? So I'm like, sure. So then I wait 1 month. I go, because Neil lives in Asia. I go to Asia. I meet him. And incidentally, the day or 2 days before we meet, Ark Labs announces Ark Labs. They announce their like website, their company, the whole thing. They do the whole thing. So it's like, okay, sweat. Because like, you're going to do a startup and you're going to have a competitor from day one.
But it's kind of good for the Neil meeting because there's some validation maybe of the concept. Maybe Neil's like, getting the joke that, like he's like, oh, like, yeah, Ark is happening.
I mean, the joke
Jump on the bandwagon.
The joke, it's not a joke. The joke is even better. So like Neil comes, like we meet, and he's like, yeah. So he's a marketing guy, right? So he's marketing. So he had been working for a friend of his who has a PR company. And that PR company was actually hired by Tierra to do the marketing of the Ark Labs website.
That's hilarious.
So he'd been spending the past 2 weeks
been
copywriting.
Already Ark-pilled.
And that's obviously why he didn't want to talk to me before that. But like when we met, this job was over and it was out there. And then he was like, yeah, so that was kind of me.
So that's meant to be, obviously. He already came in kind of knowing the protocol.
He kind of got Ark-pilled a little bit. He knew there was something to it. He also knew that like, he knew me from my Blockstream time a little bit, and we had this shared contact that recommended me.
It's a perfect match.
So we meet, we get along. I have a good feeling with Neil. He obviously needs to think about it because it comes obviously with some baggage,
startup,
with the past, and it comes with a competitor from day one. Like it's not the easiest startup to like start into.
Jumping into the lion's den.
Exactly, but eventually he comes around and he joins. Then it must have been around like June or July, and then.
Did you raise money?
We raised money, yes.
Is it announced or no?
No, it's not announced. So we don't give too much details, but we have some angel investor.
Okay. One angel investor?
A Bitcoiner.
Okay.
So then it's kind of like my birthday. It's summer. I do like every 2 years I do this birthday party at my mom's garden with like cocktails and stuff. And I send this message to Neil like, hey, you could just come. Right? I mean, I met him only once.
Come to my birthday.
But like Eric is there, right? So like we can come. We can spend a week together with Eric, and then like so he just comes. He shows up. Like all my friends are there, and then like Neil is there. Like, hey, I'm the new like co-founder of Steven. It was perfect. Like Neil's very sociable. Like it was nice.
So that was this past summer. So you're about to come up on a year.
That was the summer 24, right?
That was the summer of 24.
Yeah.
Okay,
summer 24.
So, okay.
So like Neil is there. We spent a week with Eric in Eric's house, like, and that's actually where the company second kind of started.
Okay. Now it's go time.
We incorporate. We do all the stuff, and from there on, it was like working. Wow. And since then, it's been absolutely amazing. Like, I couldn't have wished for a better team. I trust Eric with my life. He's super smart. And Neil has, like, lots of experience doing startups. He just deals with a lot of stuff that I wouldn't even know how to do. So it's absolutely perfect. Yeah.
So it's interesting. The other thing I wanted to say, so like, this will be like the final thing that we'll chat about before we wind down on this, right? But so Neil is also, he is like a hardcore money maxi on the internet for sure. I imagine he's not particularly interested in going the programmable route, which is, I think like a big potential distinction between you and your competitor. Do you see that these distinctions between Arcade, and again, I'm going to have Alex on next, but the distinction between Arcade doing programmability versus you guys really focusing on payments only, do you see that as like a cultural difference? Or
I think so. I mean, from my perspective, I'm obviously most interested in making Bitcoin work as money. And I think if payments don't work, it will not succeed in any other way. Like other things are obviously interesting, but like if money doesn't work, it doesn't work. I mean, Neil had been doing marketing at Blockstream, and it's obviously hard to sell like you can do everything on our platform. It's way easier if you can be in one niche and say like we can do this.
That's right. That's true.
He had that experience like trying to sell liquid, right? Like, how do you market liquid? It's like, oh, come here, you can do anything. But like, oh, but
then do everything, do nothing.
Like, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to sell a platform like that. And I mean, payments in Bitcoin aren't a solved problem, right? So we had a problem to solve. So like we just said, let's focus on this problem first, and anything else that Bitcoin can do comes later. Like obviously we are interested in DLCs. We're interested in like stuff like multisigs and all these like things that you can do on Bitcoin. But let's do payments, because once getting these pieces of money around works, the other things are just like extending that with like adding a different API for like a multisig and stuff like that. So then it becomes easier to like plug these new things in like DLCs and stuff. So
winding down on this culture question, because to me, and again, it'll be interesting when I have Alex on the show also, I do feel this sort of like big cultural differences between these two companies. I think that's very obvious on Twitter. Who would you say, or how would you describe kind of the core developer archetype that you want to be using Ark second, right? Like when you think about like the user archetype that's going to use this product at the developer level.
Yeah. So first, wallet developers.
Yeah.
Anyone?
Or Bitcoin
wallet developers.
Bitcoin wallet developers are the first.
Yeah, exactly. So you have a wallet that's an on-chain wallet. You want to do off-chain payments like Lightning. I think our like Bark SDK is the right fit. If you have an existing Lightning wallet, but you're struggling with your users not knowing how to do channels and liquidity, or you don't want to be an LSP, then Bark SDK is a good fit. So like anything that's a wallet, maybe things that have a wallet built on the side, because the API is supposed to be super easy to manage. It's like basically the API that you get from an on-chain wallet, but then you can make off-chain payments.
On the cultural level, though, like how do you define this user, right? Like, is this like a Knots person, or is this like an, Antoine Core person?
I don't think that has nothing to do with it. Like, it's a Bitcoiner, right?
Ooh, I totally disagree. I'm just like thinking about like the marketing here, right? Because and one of the reasons I asked is
because it's a developer. I don't know any developer who's actually running Knots.
But when you think about marketing, one of the reasons I bring this up is because Neil is quite like a strong, outspoken kind of money maxi on that side of things, I believe.
Yeah.
Right. So like,
I don't see how that's relevant.
So you don't see cultural branding as being relevant to your business model?
No, I don't see the whole Knots thing coming in here. Like, these are people building wallets. Like, you have so many wallets out there that are like.
So you don't see cultural branding as being relevant to your marketing strategy?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that Knots is not a relevant question.
You don't see Knots? You don't see what's going on with Knots and Core as a cultural question in Bitcoin?
Not really. I mean, are we going to have a team, or are we going to have one guy developer software? I think that's the question. Like, I mean,
so you're clearly Team Core.
Obviously, I mean, I don't know anyone that I know and respect who is not in Team Core. Like, there's just a bunch of like.
Is Neil Team Core?
I think he is. I mean, he obviously is. Like, I don't know anyone who's not Team Core. It's not about spam. It's about philosophy. Like, Bitcoin is a project that you don't let one lunatic run for you. I mean I think that's what the question actually boils down to.
Obviously, you're preaching to the choir, but this is not necessarily everyone's point of view.
When it comes to like our product and our like target audience, it's just developers who are building wallets, and like it's the Bitcoin protocol. It will work with Knots, with Core. It doesn't matter. It's just people that target Bitcoin users to make payments. Period. So it doesn't have to do with Knots or Core. I mean, I don't think that's very relevant, and I think it's one of those fads that will go away very fast.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll continue this off camera. All right. Bye, guys. Thank you so much for having
thank you for having me.
Yeah, this was a super interesting conversation. I'm glad we got to do this. It was a long time coming, and look forward to continued chats.
Cool. Yeah.
Congrats, by the way, also.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for having me.